Bo Burnham is a bit of a perplexing comedian. He rose to YouTube stardom before he turned 18, and his comedy is routinely self-depreciating, cynical, and retrospective. It's funny because it's true, that sort of thing. Burnham was on an episode of The Green Room with Paul Provenza, alongside Gary Shandling, Mark Maron, Judd Apatow, and Ray Romano, all giants of comedy and old enough to be Bo's dad. Eventually, they ask Bo to perform his song, Art is Dead, for the audience, a song that outlines the selfish, sellout culture surrounding the entertainment industry.
My drug's attention, I am an addict, but I get paid to indulge in my habit.
It's not supposed to be that funny of a song, and you can tangibly see the other comedians processing that exact realization as the song goes along. It's awkward, and the pseudo-tension makes you squirm a little bit, but that makes it quite entertaining. So it came as quite a surprise when I decided to watch Promising Young Woman and found that it feels exactly like this moment turned into a full film just on a different topic.
It's a literal fact, by the way. Really?
The movie is so intentionally abrasive, but it picks its words and actions with pinpoint precision, and it creates this eerie setting using unconventional camera shots and backgrounds. And on top of it all, Carey Mulligan is astounding, and writer-producer-director of the movie, Emerald Fennell, absolutely kills it in her feature-length directorial debut.
That's right.
Typically for these reviews, I don't mind spoiling the plot. I'm of the idea that many people watch reviews to gain another perspective of a movie or show that they've already seen. But this film has such a deep, careful build-up, paired with an ending that slaps you in the face, that it would be irresponsible of me to co-opt that from Fennell. What I can do is explain how this film builds such a vast yet full environment in 2 hours that just fly by. It's a beautiful, artistic tragedy that plays its cards perfectly. I grappled with the idea of beginning this review using that Bo Burnham comparison because he is far from the most important role in this movie.
Really?
He's fun, he provides a bit of tension relief, but I don't want to mince words here. This amazing movie is Emerald Fennell's brainchild via Carey Mulligan's shining performance. Let's start with Mulligan. She plays the role of Cassie, a 30-year-old med school dropout who seeks vindication for her friend Nina, who was raped in college and received no justice before presumably killing herself, although I don't believe the film ever says this outright. Cassie does these social experiments where she goes out to a bar or club and acts extremely drunk to see if guys will attempt to take her home and sexually assault her before stopping them when they do, hopefully scaring them into never doing it again. Before we continue, let me explain what this review is not. This isn't intended to be a conversation about the real-life implications of what occurs and is discussed in the movie. Sexual assault is certainly shoved under the rug far too often in real life, but my intention with this video is not to discuss the crux of the plot, but rather explain why and how this film is so fantastic at framing this very real topic, because it seems like that was Fennell's intention.
You know, we're talking about something that isn't nice. It's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, but that's how the kind of conversation starts, isn't it?
It's important to remember, too, that there is room to do both. Burnham himself said that he believes it's on guys to have this conversation about sexual assault because it cannot be just women talking about it if it's ever going to change. The women behind this movie clearly show their disdain for the predatory behavior of the, quote, nice guys, but it also revolves around the concept of grief, and that is where Mulligan is exquisite.
I guess so.
Throughout the film, these people that she encounters, men and women, are faced directly with the chance to engage with the dialogue surrounding sexual assault and admit their wrongdoings to get whatever redemption is still possible for them, and most do not take that opportunity. They want to be absolved for their sins without saying they did anything wrong, and that is clearly the focus of the film, but I think that speaks wonders to the real-world implications as well. Any bad decision you make will have consequences, and if you want a chance to redeem yourself, then you have to accept those consequences and own up to the bad decision you made. That's what the film is saying, and that seems to be the message it's relaying to its audience.
Yeah.
That's direct.
A real kick in the...
Mulligan is the tax collector, if you will, for this redemption. She literally comes knocking on the door, asking these characters to face the music, and she plays that role to a T. Cassie is hardened, determined, cunning, and resourceful, but she herself is also coping. There's a scene where Cassie is getting yelled at by another driver at an intersection, and she gets out of the car and busts their brake lights and windshield with a tire iron.
Crazy fucking bitch!
Excuse me?
Afterward, her face is noticeably rushing with adrenaline, but it's devoid of deep emotion. Rather, it's a collection of swirling thoughts. It wasn't a visceral release to do that, and she shows she's not wired to take pleasure in a psychotic outburst like that. Once she cools off moments later, she gets a little frantic, throws the tire iron back in her car, and drives off a bit jumbled. Fennell knew exactly how to craft Cassie to not be the stereotypical femme fatale. Yes, she is feared, but she isn't a man-eater. She desperately wants closure for herself and to stop this from happening to other women. And the conversation she creates in order to do that is terrifying to most of these people involved with the assault.
I'm a nice guy.
Are you?
I can't give all the credit to Fennell, though. Mulligan is simply stellar in capturing that vision. Fennell built the boat, but Mulligan is manning the sails because she forces the audience to invest in the plot by how convincing and bold her character is. In one word, she is captivating.
Doesn't sound like me.
I know.
This isn't an anti-men movie, and she's not an anti-men character. Cassie simply points the finger at those that are sympathizing with the wrong person, and those people are intriguing in and of themselves. The movie begins by doing this with random douchey characters at bars, but it evolves into tackling some people that were much more involved with Nina's assault. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't go into detail about them, but they each have a very specific way in which they either attempt to cross the line into predatory behavior or prop up that behavior.
Why don't you just fuck off now, okay?
The one I think is worth mentioning is Burnham's character, Ryan, who asks Cassie out on a date and then ends up asking her to go up to his apartment with him at the end of the night. She says no, he realizes it was a bit of a shitty gesture and doesn't force the issue, but he ends up sticking around for more of the film after and provides some of the more pleasant moments in an otherwise unpleasant series of events. Even the character that is designed to be enjoyed for much of the movie attempts the same sort of behavior, albeit to a far lesser extent. The point is, nobody is safe here.
Really? No one? No one.
Really, no one.
Let's shift gears toward the more technical side of the film. I'm no film expert, and I'm not necessarily versed in set design, music, film camera work, or any of that.
You'll get there.
But perhaps that's a testament to how well this movie builds those aspects, because even I, a layperson, can instantly recognize and understand why some of those decisions were made.
It's unbelievable. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice.
The camera work is what stood out the most, and it's probably what I'm most familiar with, so let's begin there. When two characters in a movie typically have a conversation together, you know how they're framed in the shot? Bam, like this. You know how this movie frames people when they're talking to each other? Here and here and here and here, almost never like this. These shots do a lot of different things, but they tend to add to the anxiety of the situation for one party or another. Some of them are more obvious, like when the camera is facing down at a subject to make them appear smaller, more diminutive, but a lot of them are subtle movements that come together into a whole picture. This scene where Cassie meets one of the girls she used to go to med school with is a perfect example. I spoke about this a bit in my Dead to Me review. Some of the more technical aspects of the show feel so well calculated and enhance the strong acting and writing by conveying the emotion poured into the roles. But I like the way these shots of dialogue evolve so much in this movie. Typically when you shoot dialogue, the character is framed here, so the lead room is greater than the follow room. This ensures the audience that the character is talking into space, because otherwise it appears that they're talking to the side of the screen, and it can be a bit jarring visually. However, when the creatives get a hold of this, they realize they can take advantage of that perspective and change a negative to a positive.
Surprisingly into it.
In this conversation, each character is framed like this, and because the depth of field is very shallow, the framework accentuates the character's facial features. Your brain plays a trick on you and almost subconsciously forgets that the character is speaking to another person, further dividing the two characters in the same setting.
Do you know how strange this is?
In most cases of dialogue, this is a bad thing, because the point of most conversations in film is for both parties to provide something. But in this case, it works perfectly, because it juxtaposes the two characters even further. Cassie has something she wants to talk about and feels a certain way about, and Madison is on a much different page, so the camera work reflects that. These shots also begin wide and slowly creep in toward the subjects as the topic gets more and more serious, adding to that eerie, tense feeling. Finally, at the apex of the conversation, the camera shows Cassie like this. She is on the offensive at this point, and this is sort of the reverse of that diminutive shot from earlier, but it's a little bit different. Her head is so low in the frame, and it's still obvious that she is being shot from below to make her appear bigger, but she does not come off as objectively intimidating from the framing alone. Yes, she's intimidating to Madison, but Cassie is not strong-arming her. She just has Madison wrapped into this dialogue, and Cassie is not going to let go until Madison shares how she really feels. Cassie has no intentions of hurting Madison, but she does intend to get an answer, and that is exactly what this shot portrays.
I'm such a fucking perfectionist, you know?
These scenes are not isolated incidents. The camera work frequently backs up and adds more emotion and tension to these scenes, and that is some incredible foresight for Fennell, who had never directed, written, or produced a full-length film. This is just one in a laundry list of reasons why Promising Young Woman is so fantastic. It doesn't have a crutch. Mulligan is superb, but she doesn't carry the movie. Fennell is so clearly creative and talented, but the cast does so well by her vision. The basis of the plot is direct, but there is so much nuance that it is nowhere close to generic. There's a certain commonality among the supporting cast, but each character adds a different notch to a similar perspective. At the end of it all, I found myself looking back and realizing it accomplished exactly what it set out to do. Just like Bo Burnham telling a whole bunch of his peers that their careers are built in an industry of insecurity and selfishness, Promising Young Woman tells its story exactly how it wants to. Did it make you squirm? Good. That's what it was trying to do in every single aspect.
Gorgeous, though. Who needs brains? They never did a girl any good. Great to see you again, Dean Walker.